Hi guys, it is me, Max here with a brand new and hopefully great political video. And today we're going to talk about why this beautiful man here, Donald John Trump, is probably the worst choice for the Republicans as a nominee in 2024. And I will explain to you why I believe he's the least electable. This is not about him as a person. It is also not linked to the current trials that we're hearing about the January 6th insurrection, about this committee by Congress. No, we're just covering the electoral aspect of it. Now, first of all, up here we have the Porsche logo. Otherwise, there's no ads on this channel, but Porsche, we have an ad for that because it's fucking sick. And I want to explain you one thing. Ron DeSantis probably has the highest chance at beating Joe Biden because he is young, he's energetic, he's run a great administration down in Florida, getting conservative legislation passed like the Don't Say Gay bill, and he's in support of many other great pieces of legislation, like, for example, his ability to go after critical race theory and go after illegal protests. And he is running a very competent administration, and Florida has amongst the lowest gas prices in the country. Now, Joe Biden, on the flip side, is a very unpopular president. He's seen high gas prices, high inflation numbers, and he's unwilling to revitalize America's oil industry by authorizing additional drilling due to environmental concerns. Dude, we can't all buy a Tesla. Some of us rely on fossil fuels for our cars in order to get around. And for that, it would also be very nice if some oil workers would get their jobs back instead of you taking them away from those workers. Well, whatever. Some people you just can't understand and can't change. However, you can change whether they hold office or not, and I hope Joe Biden will be out soon. As you can see by this map, Ron DeSantis would sweep the table. Oregon would probably be within 10%. Washington would be within 15%. New Mexico would be very close to flipping. Texas would be likely. Florida would be likely. Ohio and Iowa, which were both likely states in 2020, I believe Ron DeSantis would win those by safe margins. Other than that, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Illinois would be a little closer but not really competitive. Well, a lot of states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota would be added newly to the category. Georgia and Nevada, those states that are usually a little close, would all go to DeSantis. He'd also win Maine and New Hampshire. I believe he would win Maine because Donald Trump was actually very close to winning it in 2016, and New Hampshire has a tendency of voting against the incumbent. They voted heavily against Donald Trump. They swung heavily against Obama, though it didn't flip, and they also went big. They also went against Bush in 2004. So New Hampshire usually votes against the incumbent, and I think they do it again. However, Joe Biden would win Delaware safe, it being his home state. Against Kamala Harris, though, I believe Ron DeSantis would make a really, really, really good show against her. Now, Texas would be safe again in that category. I think he'd win it by more than 15%. Arizona would be like a 9 point margin, but it wouldn't be likely. I think Arizona has really trended left in a way that it is hard to believe it's going to be a ruby red state again, but it's definitely going to have more of a Republican lean than of a Democrat lean. Nevada would go by a bigger margin. He'd win Wisconsin by a pretty comfortable margin, by like 12 or 13%. It wouldn't even really be competitive. I think in this scenario, Iowa is probably like a 25% Republican state. Michigan wouldn't be too close. Pennsylvania wouldn't be too close. North Carolina and Georgia would also be pretty high. Like North Carolina 9%, Georgia 6%. Florida he'd win by 14. He might even win it safe, but because it is still has a lot of Democrats in it, I wouldn't classify it as safe just yet. I think Delaware would be extremely close. Delaware actually is trending somewhat Republican. Their legislature is fairly close towards flipping, and also like they are a fairly rural state except for the more urban areas up north. So I have a feeling at some point Delaware is going to be more Republican, and a complete disaster for the Democrats like Kamala Harris would probably be enough in order to flip it. In regards to New Jersey, I think that state would be within 10 along with Connecticut. They'd barely be within 10. I don't think DeSantis has a real shot at winning them. But would you always see that in years where Republicans do really good, some of these seaboard states are a little closer. Rhode Island would be added newly to the category. There's actually one house seat in Rhode Island that might flip, not even gonna lie. New York populist New Yorker did a really good video on that. I recommend you go watch it. And other than that, it would be a complete total landslide. Ron DeSantis would get 347 votes. None of the Till states would even matter for him to win. He'd get 189 safe. Harris would just get 114, literally only winning her home state, Hawaii, Maryland, New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts by more than 15 points. So she wouldn't do really well. It would be a Republican blowout. However, now we go to Donald Trump. I still think. Oh, where is he? Where did I do the Trump map again? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, here it is. Now, I think Donald Trump, in the current situation, with high gas prices, high inflation, and one foreign policy disaster after another, yes, I still think Donald Trump would win. I am not a Trump hater. I do not have Trump derangement syndrome. I did show the picture with him X'd out, but I just believe that Donald Trump has had his shot. He tried his best to be a good president. He tried his best to be a good conservative, and he hasn't really done very well. He could have done a lot better, and he let many of his supporters down by just listening to Jared Kushner all the time, making pretty bad decisions, and overall just not being a real fighter. And I think by now his movement is too much about himself rather than actual policy. Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump would be an apocalypse for Republicans. He would still be electable, but he would not be the best choice, and he would also not be the best president if he came back. Because he's still too much of a guy who likes to talk the talk like a TV celebrity and doesn't really walk the walk. Like, the showman in him is still too predominant. That's everything I'm trying to say. Now, apart from Donald Trump, how would he do electorally? Well, he would turn Iowa into a safe state. That'll happen either way. It's turning hard Republican and it's a very rural state. There's no doubt about it. Ohio would be pretty likely, but it would still be within 15%. Texas would go more Republican than it was, but I don't think it would go over plus 10% for the Republican ballot. I think it would be within 10. I think Florida would also be above 5, but it would not cross 10% for him, and North Carolina the same. Now, New Mexico would trend right either way due to Hispanic shifts, and I believe Donald Trump would hurt that trend a little, but he wouldn't be able to hold it even if he's a weaker candidate. New Mexico would trend to the right and therefore be a little more competitive. Also, Oregon would be a little closer because it would be a more favorable year for Republicans. Illinois as well. It's kind of an industrial state, and Donald Trump is a great working class candidate, or at least he used to be. And Minnesota and Michigan are going to go to Joe Biden. They did last time around. I assume they'll go by similar margins this time. However, I think Donald Trump will win Wisconsin, and that's going to be the state that puts him over the finish line in the end. However, I do think Biden would hold on to Pennsylvania. He'd campaign intensively and win it by like 0.1%. And overall, Donald Trump would win. Like, Arizona would be close, Nevada would be close, Georgia would be really close, but it would be enough to carry him over the finish line. And it would be essentially the 2020 electoral map, just with it being shifted 1 or 2 points in Trump's favor due to changing national environments. However, Donald Trump would not be able to win new voters for the party. He would be able to hold enough voters to turn out for him to combat the lowered energizement for Joe Biden, but especially with a lot of the hate that he's getting from the Biden base. Like, there's one thing one thing that the Democrats are still afraid of and that might actually cause them to turn out. It's not abortions, it's not guns, but it is Donald Trump. You can't deny it. You can't deny that anger against Donald Trump has been a great voting turnout call for Democratic politicians. The Orange Man bad vote has helped flip many districts, including two Georgia Senate races. So even with Biden's approval far underwater, in an election against Trump, in a rematch, he might be able to win the popular vote, though his own unpopularity would probably be enough for him to lose the election this time around. And so overall, I'm trying to say, Donald Trump would not bring anything new to the party. He would probably not govern very different from how he governed in his first term, and he didn't finish the wall. He only passed a tax cut that mostly benefited the rich and had non-recurring provisions for the tax cuts for smaller, lower income class Americans. So people at the bottom got screwed, while people at the top had their tax cuts be recurring and they continued to be low. And he just wouldn't push through any of the big reforms. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed that Ron DeSantis will do that either, but I'm saying he has government experience. He is running Florida in a very good way, and I'd like to see that expanded to the national scene. Well, Donald Trump, apart from running an outrageous Twitter account, really hasn't contributed much to American conservatism. Not as of late. If he comes out as a great leader again, if he shows new ideas, I'd be able to support him. But as of right now, I hope DeSantis is the nominee. And I think he'd have a much better chance at bringing about a conservative decade than Donald Trump has. Oh, and before I end this video, the reason why I have a Biden and a Harris version against DeSantis is I believe if Donald Trump doesn't run again, Joe Biden is more likely to retire because he wouldn't feel the need to prevent Trump again. Then he'd feel like, okay, I can pass it down to my VP. I did everything I could. I got Trump out. That's all I wanted. Well, if Trump runs again, Joe Biden will feel the need to run again and finish his work of preventing Trump. Which I honestly believe Joe Biden, because he's the incumbent and because he's a lot more reasonable and also a lot smarter than Kamala Harris, he would be a tougher candidate to run against. But that's everything I want to say for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If not, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you have your own opinion on that whole thing. Please feel free to share with me. And yeah, have a good time and see you guys later. Goodbye.